Commander Elena Reyes stood alone on the observation deck of the Earth Defense Force flagship Defiance. The massive window before her showed the stars, cold and distant. Earth hung below, a blue jewel against the blackness of space. Elena's dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her uniform was perfectly pressed despite the long hours she had been on duty. The message had come 3 hours ago, alien ships approaching the solar system. Not the Void Heralds, not yet, but the Galactic Council. They had arrived much faster than anyone expected. "Commander," said a voice from behind her. "They're ready to begin the transmission." Elena turned to face Lieutenant Park, her communications officer. "Show them in." The air in front of her shimmered as the holographic projectors activated. 5 alien forms appeared, each one stranger than the last. The Galactic Council, representatives of 17 different species that had banded together thousands of years ago. In the center stood Zalvor, a being made of blue crystal that caught the light and broke it into countless tiny rainbows. Next to him was the Arcadian Elder, who looked somewhat like a giant praying mantis with colorful feathers where mandibles should be. "Commander Reyes," said Zalvor, his voice translated by the ship's computers. "Thank you for meeting with us so quickly." Elena nodded. "You said it was urgent, something about the Void Heralds." The 5 aliens looked at each other, and Elena could read their body language even across species. They were afraid. "They will arrive in your system within 2 weeks," said the Arcadian Elder. "We have been tracking their movements. The Void Heralds have changed course and are heading directly for Earth." A cold feeling spread through Elena's chest, but she kept her face calm. Earth had known about the Void Heralds for only 3 months, ever since their long-range sensors had picked up the massive fleet moving through a nearby star system. Planet-sized ships that seemed to eat everything in their path, asteroids, moons, even entire worlds. "We've been preparing our defenses," Elena said. "Our scientists believe—" "No defense will work," interrupted Zalvor. His crystal body flashed, with pulses of worried light. "You don't understand. The Void Heralds are not an enemy you can fight. They have consumed 12 galactic civilizations before us. The only reason the Council still exists is because we've perfected the art of retreat." The hologram changed to show images of massive black ships, each one the size of a small moon. The ships moved like a swarm of insects, surrounding planets and breaking them apart piece by piece. "They convert all matter into energy and raw materials," explained a slug-like alien whose name Elena couldn't pronounce. "Nothing is spared, not planets, not moons, not people." "Then why are you here?" Elena asked, though she already knew the answer. "To evacuate your people," said the Arcadian Elder. "We can take 10 million humans to our sanctuary worlds. Your species will survive, even if Earth does not. 10 million. Out of 11 billion. Elena's hands tightened into fists at her sides. "And how long before these sanctuary worlds are abandoned too?" she asked, her voice steady despite her anger. "How many more times will you flee?" The council representatives exchanged glances. It was the Arcadian Elder who spoke next, her feathered mandibles clicking softly. "It is the way of survival. Sometimes the only victory is to live another day. While you've been running for 10,000 years, we've been working on something new," Elena said. She moved her hand through the air, bringing up Earth's own schematics. Project Prometheus. The aliens stared at the rotating hologram of a device no bigger than a basketball. "Impossible," whispered Zalvor. "You cannot harness a quantum singularity as a weapon. The calculations, the containment, are solved," Elena said firmly. "We didn't have 10,000 years of spacefaring history to guide us. We had necessity. 3 months wasn't much time to prepare for the end of the world, but humanity had always worked best under pressure. While the politicians had argued and panicked, the best scientific minds on Earth had come together. They had taken theoretical physics and made it real." "You don't understand the risks," said another council member, a floating creature that looked like a jellyfish made of smoke. "If your calculations are wrong, you could tear a hole in space-time itself." "We understand the risks perfectly," Elena replied. But unlike you, we don't plan to abandon our home. She turned to look at Earth again, hanging in the darkness outside the window, beautiful and fragile, and home to everything humans had ever built or dreamed. Please, the Arcadian elder pleaded, reconsider. We have seen civilizations far more advanced than yours try to fight. None have succeeded. Even if this works, the consequences could be catastrophic for the entire sector. Elena's face hardened. Earth is not yours to save or to sacrifice. The decision has been made. You're dooming your species out of pride, said Zalvor, his crystal form darkening with emotion. No, Elena said quietly. We're fighting for our home, for our history, for everything we've built and everything we might become. She turned back to face the council members. Humanity thanks you for the warning, but we will handle the Void Heralds our own way. And if you fail, asked the Arcadian elder. Then at least we fail on our own terms, Elena answered. We've studied your history, elder. For 10,000 years your council has been running from shadow to shadow, leaving worlds behind to save a fraction of their people. That might be your way, but it will never be ours. She gestured, and Lieutenant Park cut the transmission. The alien representatives vanished, leaving Elena alone with the stars and her thoughts. Her communicator beeped. Commander, came the voice of Dr. Sanjay Kapoor from the Lunar Research Station. Final testing on the Prometheus device is complete. We're ready to begin installation on the defense fleet. Good, said Elena. How many ships can we arm? 12, Sanjay replied. It's not many against their fleet, but each device should affect a significant area. Elena nodded to herself. 12 ships against an armada that had destroyed entire civilizations. The odds were terrible, but they were the only odds humanity had. The council representatives are preparing to leave the system, Lieutenant Park reported. They're requesting one final meeting. Denied, Elena said. They've made their position clear, and so have we. She looked once more at Earth, thinking of all the people going about their daily lives below. Most knew about the approaching threat, but few understood what was really coming. The government had decided not to cause panic. Let people live normally while they still could. The Galactic Council has made its choice to run, Elena whispered to herself. Humanity has made its choice to stand. Whether that choice was brave or foolish, only time would tell. Dr. Sanjay Kapoor rubbed his tired eyes and took another sip of cold coffee. He hadn't slept in nearly 2 days. The laboratory aboard the Lunar Research Station Artemis hummed with activity around him. Technicians moved quickly between workstations, making final adjustments to the Prometheus core, a device no larger than a basketball that could either save humanity or tear apart the fabric of space-time. Still with us, Doctor? Asked Maya, his assistant, as she placed a fresh cup of coffee beside him. Sanjay blinked and nodded. Just thinking. If our calculations are off by even 1 decimal point. He didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone in the lab knew what was at stake. The council representatives are requesting access to your research, Maya said, sliding a tablet across the workbench. They're citing something called Galactic Protocol 7 Alpha, Prevention of Existential Technologies. Sanjay barely looked up from the quantum matrix he was adjusting. Tell them Protocol 7 Alpha applies to council member species. Last I checked, they denied our application 3 times. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. For decades, humanity had asked to join the Galactic Council, only to be told they were too aggressive and too unpredictable, and not advanced enough. Now those same qualities might be what saved Earth. They're worried we'll create something worse than the Void Heralds, Maya said quietly. Sanjay finally looked up from his work. Maybe we will. But at least we're trying something. That's more than they've done in 10,000 years. The main screen on the lab wall lit up with an incoming transmission. Commander Elena Reyes appeared, her face showing the strain of recent days. Dr. Kapoor, what's your status? She asked without preamble. Final calibrations are almost complete, Sanjay replied. We're running the last simulations now. The Prometheus cores will be ready for transport to the fleet in 6 hours. Elena nodded. Good. The Void Heralds have increased speed. They'll reach Jupiter in 4 days, not 7, as we initially calculated. A heavy silence fell over the lab. They were running out of time. Commander, Sanjay said hesitantly, there's something you should know. The simulations show a 22% chance of unexpected results. Meaning? Elena asked. Meaning we can't predict exactly what will happen when we activate all 12 devices simultaneously. We know they'll create quantum singularities, but how those singularities will interact with each other and with the Void Herald's technology. Sanjay shook his head. There are too many variables. Elena's expression didn't change. Doctor, if we do nothing, there's a 100% chance Earth will be consumed. I'll take that 22% risk any day. After the transmission ended, Sanjay turned back to his work with renewed focus. He had joined Project Prometheus 3 months ago when the first long-range scans detected the Void Herald fleet. As Earth's leading quantum physicist, he had been asked to do the impossible, create a weapon that could stop planet-sized alien ships. Now that impossible task was almost complete. In orbit around Earth, Colonel Jackson Way supervised the installation of the first Prometheus device on the military ship Defiance. The ship's cargo bay had been converted into a launch platform for the device, with new systems installed to handle the immense energy requirements. "Careful with that," Jackson shouted as engineers lowered the protective casing around the core. "One scratch on the containment field emitters and we'll have bigger problems than the Void Heralds." Commander Reyes entered the cargo bay, her boots making hollow sounds on the metal floor. Jackson straightened and saluted. "At ease, Colonel," Elena said. "How's the installation coming?" "We'll be ready on schedule, Commander," Jackson replied. "The same can't be said for all ships in the fleet. The Horizon and the Dauntless are reporting issues with their power systems." Elena frowned. "They need to be fixed. We need all 12 ships operational." Jackson nodded. "The Council's pulling their diplomatic corps out," he informed her. "Apparently they don't want to be anywhere near this cosmic abomination, as they called it." "Can't say I blame them," Elena said, looking at the Prometheus device. Even safely contained, it radiated danger. "If Dr. Kapoor's calculations are off by even a fraction," Jackson completed her thought, "then we won't need to worry about the Void Heralds anymore." They stood in silence for a moment, contemplating the device that represented humanity's last, best hope. "Do you think we're doing the right thing?" Jackson asked quietly. Elena considered the question. "I don't know if it's right," she finally said. "But I know that running, abandoning Earth and accepting the loss of everything and almost everyone, that's definitely wrong." An alert sounded on Jackson's communicator. He checked it and frowned. "Commander, we have an unauthorized shuttle approaching from the last Council ship. They're requesting permission to dock." Elena's eyes narrowed. "Who is it?" "They identify themselves as Etri-Il, a Medusan researcher. They say they have information about the Void Heralds that the Council has been keeping secret." Elena hesitated, only briefly. "Let them dock. Have security meet them and bring them to my office." 30 minutes later, Elena faced the crystalline form of Etri-Il. Unlike Zalvor, whose crystal body had been deep blue, Etri-Il was a pale green color that shifted and changed with their emotions. "I'm not supposed to share this," the Medusan said, their voice translated by the ship's computer. "But our historical archives contain fragments of information about the Void Heralds that the Council elders keep hidden from the public." "What kind of information?" Elena asked. "They're not just consuming worlds," Etri-Il said, their crystal form pulsing with nervousness. "They're building something. Each galaxy they devour adds to their computational capacity." "For what purpose?" Elena leaned forward, intrigued despite her caution. Etri-Il's form darkened. "We don't know, but I believe your approach, as dangerous as it is, deserves a chance. Our leaders have forgotten what it means to fight." The Medusan handed Elena a small crystal. "This contains all the data we have on the Herald's consumption patterns and energy signatures. It might help you refine your weapons." "Why are you helping us?" Elena asked. "You're risking everything." "Because in 10,000 years, No species has ever stood against the heralds, Itriil replied. The council once believed in exploration and discovery. Now we only believe in running. Perhaps humanity will remind us of what we've lost. After the Medusan left to return to their ship, Elena sat alone in her office, turning the crystal over in her hands. She didn't fully trust this unexpected ally, but they couldn't afford to ignore any potential advantage. Her communicator chimed. "Commander," came Sanjay's voice. "The Prometheus weapons are ready for deployment." Elena took a deep breath. "Begin transport to the fleet immediately, and Sanjay, send a copy of our research to Lunar Archive Base, just in case." "Understood," Sanjay replied quietly. Elena looked out her viewport at Earth, beautiful and blue against the blackness of space. 4 days until the Void Heralds reached Jupiter. 4 days to prepare for humanity's last stand. "We'll only have one shot at this," she whispered to herself. The fate of Earth, perhaps the galaxy, rested on humanity's desperate gamble. The Void Herald Vanguard arrived precisely as predicted. Massive ships that blotted out the stars appeared near Jupiter, their black surfaces seeming to absorb light rather than reflect it. They were unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Each one a city-sized mass that looked more like living structures than vessels. From the bridge of the Defiance, Commander Elena Reyes watched the main view screen as the first of the Herald ships approached Jupiter's moon Ganymede. "Magnify Sector 4, she ordered. The screen zoomed in, showing tiny specks pouring from the Herald ship onto Ganymede's surface. Within minutes, a dark stain began to spread across the moon. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Carver at the sensor station. "They're consuming the entire moon. At this rate, Ganymede will be gone in hours." The human fleet hung back at the Mars orbital line. 12 ships against hundreds. The Council's warnings echoed in Elena's mind. You cannot defeat them. No one ever has. Elena felt a chill run down her spine but kept her face calm. The crew needed to see her confidence now more than ever. "Status of the Prometheus devices?" she asked. "All 12 are online and ready," reported Colonel Jackson Way from the weapons station. "Power levels optimal. Deployment systems green across all ships." A transmission cut through the tense silence on the bridge. Dr. Sanjay Kapoor appeared, on a secondary screen from the science vessel Oppenheimer. "Final simulations complete, Commander," he said, his face showing the strain of days without proper rest. "The Prometheus devices will create a cascading quantum reaction. Timing will be everything. We need to deploy all 12 simultaneously." Elena nodded. "All ships, battle formation Theta. Prepare for lightspeed jump on my mark." The 12 ships of Earth's defensive fleet moved into position, arranging themselves in a 3-dimensional pattern designed to maximize the effect of the Prometheus devices. Each ship was the best humanity had to offer, crewed by volunteers who understood the desperate nature of their mission. 5 minutes to jump position," announced the navigation officer. Elena took a deep breath. This was it. Humanity's last stand. If they failed here, Earth would be next. As the fleet accelerated toward Jupiter, sensors detected movement among the Void Heralds. They were responding to the approaching threat, though without any apparent concern. Why would they fear 12 tiny ships when they had devoured entire civilizations? "Commander," called Lieutenant Carver, "I'm detecting unusual energy patterns from the Herald ships. They're changing configuration." On the view screen, several of the massive black vessels began to shift and move, turning their attention away from Ganymede and toward the human fleet. What happened next stunned everyone. The heralds communicated, not with words or signals like any human might expect, but through patterns of energy that the ship's AI struggled to translate. "They're curious," reported the communications officer after a moment. "The translation algorithm suggests they want to know why we aren't fleeing like the others." Elena's hands tightened on the command rail. "Send no response. All ships maintain course." As they approached deployment range, the Void Heralds made no aggressive moves. Instead, several smaller vessels detached from the main fleet and moved toward the human ships in what appeared to be an observation pattern. "Commander," Lieutenant Carver said, voice tight with tension, "I'm detecting energy signatures consistent with scanning technology. They're studying us." Elena felt a chill. It was as if they were being examined like specimens in a laboratory. "Hold steady. Deployment in 60 seconds. Then came the message that changed everything. The Herald's communication became clearer, translated into a sequence of mathematical equations that appeared on the main screen. "Why resist what you cannot understand? Your addition to our purpose would be significant." Elena exchanged glances with her officers. For the first time, according to all records, the Void Heralds weren't treating a species as mere resources. They were acknowledging humanity as something worthy of direct communication. 30 seconds to deployment range, announced the tactical. Officer Elena made her decision. "All ships hold positions," she opened a channel. "This is Commander Elena Reyes of Earth. We resist because this is our home. We will not be consumed." The response came immediately, scrolling across the screen. "Consumption is transformation. The Council races cannot comprehend the elevation we offer." Elena frowned. This wasn't what they had expected. The Heralds weren't mindless destroyers. They had purpose, intent. But what exactly did they mean by elevation? "Deployment range achieved," reported Tactical. "Awaiting your command." Elena hesitated for just a moment. Should they attempt further communication? Try to understand what these beings wanted? But Ganymede was already half consumed, its matter being converted into something else before their eyes. Whatever the Herald's purpose, they clearly wouldn't stop their consumption of the solar system. "All ships deploy Prometheus devices. Now." Across the fleet, officers entered final commands. 12 launch bays opened, and 12 devices, each containing the potential to create a controlled quantum singularity, were ejected into space. "Devices away," reported Colonel Way. 15 seconds to activation. The bridge fell silent as they watched the small devices speed toward their targets, looking impossibly tiny against the massive Herald ships. "The Heralds are transmitting again," said the communications officer. The message appeared on screen. "Your resistance indicates potential. You are the first to challenge rather than flee. This makes you worthy of direct integration." "What does that mean?" Jackson asked. Elena shook her head. "I don't know. And right now I don't care. How long until device activation?" 5 seconds, replied Colonel Way. 4, 3, 2, 1. For a breath-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, like a stone thrown into still water, ripples of distorted space-time spread outward from each device. Where each Prometheus core had been, a pinprick of absolute darkness appeared. Artificial quantum singularities, each no larger than a coin but containing the gravitational force of a small moon. The effect on the nearest Void Herald ships was immediate. The massive vessels began to warp and twist, pulled toward the tiny black holes. Their dark surfaces stretched like taffy as the enormous gravitational forces tore at them. On the Defiance, alarms blared as the gravitational waves reached the human fleet. "All ships emergency thrusters," Elena ordered. "Fall back to safe distance." The human vessels fired their engines at maximum power, fighting to escape the growing gravitational pull of the singularities they had created. 2 ships at the rear of the formation, the Horizon and the Dauntless, struggled as their engines strained against the pull. "The Horizon's engines are failing," reported Colonel Way, his voice tight. "They're being pulled towards Singularity 4. Elena made another, difficult decision. "All ships except Defiance continue retreat. We're going to assist the Horizon." "Commander, that's too dangerous," Jackson protested. "We're not leaving anyone behind," Elena said firmly. "Take us in. Full power to forward shields." As the Defiance turned back toward the danger, the view screen showed something unexpected. The Void Heralds weren't being destroyed as they had hoped. Though clearly affected by the singularities, the massive ships seemed to be adapting, their structures flowing and changing to resist the gravitational forces. More alarming, the singularities themselves were beginning to behave strangely. Instead of remaining stable, they pulsed with impossible energies, growing and shrinking in irregular patterns. This wasn't in the simulations. Sanjay's panicked voice came through the comms. The heralds, their ships contain some kind of exotic matter that's reacting with our singularities. As the Defiance fought its way toward the struggling horizon, Jupiter itself began to show the effects of the nearby singularities. The gas giant's surface swirled unnaturally as massive storms formed and disappeared in seconds. "Commander," shouted Lieutenant Carver, "the heralds are communicating again. All frequencies, all channels." A single phrase appeared on every screen. Throughout the ship, "The bridge opens. The purpose advances." Before Elena could respond, a blinding flash of light erupted from where the largest singularity had formed. When the automatic filters on the view screen cleared, what they saw left everyone speechless. A swirling vortex of energy had formed, growing larger by the second. The nearby Void Herald ships weren't fleeing from it. They were moving toward it almost eagerly. "What is that?" Elena whispered. Sanjay's voice came through the comms, filled with both terror and wonder. "It's not just a singularity anymore, I think it's a bridge, a doorway to somewhere else." As the human fleet retreated to a safe distance, Jupiter itself began to distort, its massive form being pulled toward the growing anomaly. They wanted this, Elena realized suddenly. The heralds, this is what they've been working toward all along. The question now was, what would come through that bridge? 12 quantum singularities bloomed in the space around Jupiter, each no larger than a pinprick in the fabric of reality. For a breathless moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, like a stone thrown into still water, ripples of distorted space-time spread outward. On the bridge of the Defiance, alarms blared as the ship shuddered violently. "All ships emergency thrusters. Fall back to Mars perimeter," Elena ordered, gripping her command chair as the vessel trembled around her. The Prometheus weapons were designed to create controlled, temporary singularities, but the interaction with Void Herald technology had triggered something unexpected. The quantum ripples were amplifying each other, merging into a churning maelstrom centered near Jupiter's largest moon. This wasn't in the simulations. Sanjay's panicked voice came through the comms. "The heralds, their ships contain some kind of exotic matter that's catalyzing the reaction." Through the viewports, Elena watched as Jupiter's massive form began to distort. The gas giant's colorful bands swirled faster, like water being pulled down a drain. The remaining Void Heralds didn't flee. Instead, they moved toward the growing anomaly as if drawn to it. "All ships report," Elena commanded, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding before them. Colonel Wei quickly checked the fleet status. 10 ships responding, Commander. The Horizon and the Dauntless are not answering hails. Last known position was too close to Singularity 4. Elena closed her eyes for a moment. 2 ships, with over 300 crew members each. Gone. "They're communicating again," reported Lieutenant Carver, expression bewildered. "It's like they're excited." The translation reads, "The bridge opens. The purpose advances." The human fleet retreated to a safe distance, watching in awe and horror as the impossible happened. Jupiter, the largest planet in the solar system, began to collapse inward upon itself. The gas giant's atmosphere swirled faster and faster, drawn inexorably toward the center of the growing singularity. "All that mass," Sanjay whispered over the comms. "It's feeding the reaction, making it stronger. Can we stop it?" Elena asked. There was a pause before Sanjay answered. "I don't think so. Not now. The reaction has gone beyond critical mass." Hours passed as the human fleet maintained a safe distance, monitoring the situation. Scientists aboard every ship worked frantically to understand what was happening. The Void Herald ships had positioned themselves in a precise pattern around the anomaly, their black surfaces now pulsing with patterns of light. "Commander," Lieutenant Carver called out, "I'm detecting something new. Energy readings unlike anything in our database." On the main view screen, Jupiter had vanished entirely, leaving behind a spinning disk of glowing matter around a bottomless void. But where a black hole should be stable and contained, this anomaly pulsed with impossible energies. Streams of data, Information encoded in quantum states flowed both into and out of the event horizon. It's transmitting something, Sanjay said, his voice filled with wonder. These aren't just energy patterns. They're data packets, incredibly complex ones. Before Elena could respond, a small ship appeared on the edge of their sensor range. It was unlike the massive void heralds, sleeker with organic curves that reflected light instead of absorbing it. "We're being hailed," announced the communications officer. Elena straightened her uniform. On screen, the view screen changed to show the interior of the alien vessel. Standing there was the Arcadian elder who had pleaded with humanity to flee. Her feathered mandibles trembled as she looked at Elena. "What have you done?" she whispered, her compound eyes reflecting the pulsing anomaly visible through her ship's viewport. Elena stood firm despite her own uncertainty. "We defended our home. Your council ran for 10,000 years. We chose to fight." "No, Commander," the elder said, her voice soft but intense. "I fear you've invited something far worse than the heralds themselves. That is not destruction you're witnessing, it's communication." Elena frowned. "Explain." "The oldest records in the council archives speak of the time before the heralds," the Arcadian said. "Fragments of knowledge passed down from the first races. They speak of bridges between dimensions, doorways to realms beyond our understanding." Sanjay's voice cut in through the comms. "Commander, she might be right. The data patterns we're detecting, they're not just going out from the anomaly, they're also coming in, from somewhere else." As if in response to his words, the anomaly flared brilliantly, and every communication device in the solar system, from quantum computers to simple radios, began receiving the same message, encoded in mathematical patterns that transcended language. Bridge established. Gratitude to the catalyst species. Preparation for convergence begins. "What does that mean?" Elena asked the Arcadian elder. The alien's feathered mandibles clicked rapidly in what Elena recognized as a sign of extreme distress. "It means that the Void Heralds were never the enemy, Commander. They were tools, messengers, sent to prepare the way." "For what?" Elena demanded. "We don't know," the elder admitted. "The first races only left warnings, not explanations. Whatever lies on the other side of that bridge, it has been trying to reach our universe for millennia." Elena turned to look at the swirling anomaly that had once been Jupiter. "And we just opened the door." In the days that followed, Earth's scientists worked alongside the few council researchers brave enough to remain in the solar system. They studied the anomaly, now called the Jupiter event, from a safe distance, trying to understand what they had inadvertently created. The remaining Void Herald ships positioned themselves around the anomaly in a perfect geometric pattern. They no longer showed any interest in consuming planets or moons. Their purpose, it seemed, had been fulfilled. 1 week after the Jupiter event, Elena stood in a secure conference room aboard the Defiance, now stationed at Earth's L1 point as the first line of defense. With her were Dr. Sanjay Kapoor, whose Prometheus device had changed everything, Salvor, sent by the Council despite his earlier warnings, and Etriil, the rogue Medusan scientist who had chosen to stay. "We've translated approximately 3% of the data coming through the bridge," Sanjay explained, projecting a holographic model above the table. "It's unlike anything we've encountered, not just information but computational frameworks, physics that shouldn't be possible." Zalvor's crystalline form pulsed with agitation. "The Council has cross-referenced this with fragments recovered from previous Herald incursions. We believe they've been attempting to build these bridges for millions of years, consuming worlds to gather the energy and resources needed." "But why?" Elena asked, the question that had been haunting her since Jupiter vanished. "What's on the other side?" Etriel moved forward, excitement evident in the rapid color shifts across his crystal structure. "Not what, who. The data patterns suggest intelligence, but operating on principles so alien, we struggle to recognize it as such. We believe the heralds are tools, constructs built to establish contact between our dimension and theirs." The revelation hung heavy in the air. The void heralds, the destroyers of worlds that the Council had fled from for millennia, were never the enemy. They were messengers or perhaps missionaries, preparing the way for something else entirely. 3 days ago, Sanjay continued, we received what appears to be a request. The entities on the other side want representatives to enter the bridge. Elena's brow furrowed. It could be a trap. Perhaps, agreed Zalvor, surprising everyone. But in 10,000 years of running, the Council never stopped to ask what the Heralds wanted. We assumed destruction was their only purpose because we couldn't imagine any other. Elena walked to the viewport and looked out at Earth, blue and vulnerable. The human fleet still stood guard, joined now by a handful of Council vessels that had returned to study the anomaly. Beyond them, where Jupiter had once been, the bridge pulsed with energies that defied understanding. The Void Heralds had consumed 12 civilizations before reaching Earth. The Galactic Council had run from them for 10,000 years. And humanity, in its stubborn refusal to abandon its home, had accidentally answered a call from beyond their universe. So, Elena said quietly, turning back to face the others, do we send someone through? The question hung in the air, unanswered. The choice they made now might determine the fate of not just humanity, but all life in their universe. 3 weeks after what was now called the Jupiter event, Earth had changed irrevocably. The quantum bridge remained stable, a swirling vortex where the gas giant once stood. Through it flowed information beyond human comprehension, data streams that the best AI systems could only partially decode. The remaining Void Herald ships had positioned themselves around the anomaly in a protective formation. They no longer consumed planets or moons, seemingly focused only on guarding the bridge. More surprisingly, the Galactic Council, after initially threatening to quarantine the entire solar system, had established a research outpost at Neptune to study the phenomenon. Dr. Maya Chen stared at the holographic display in her laboratory aboard the research station Hawking. As Sanjay's former assistant, she had volunteered to lead the team analyzing the bridge's transmissions. For 3 weeks, they had worked tirelessly to understand what was coming through. Any progress? Asked Commander Elena Reyes, entering the lab. She looked tired. They all did. But there was a new energy in her movements, a sense of purpose. Maya gestured to the swirling patterns of light above her workstation. We've managed to translate about 7% of the data now. It's unlike anything we've ever seen, not just information but frameworks, ways of thinking that don't match how our brains work. Elena looked at the display, trying to make sense of the complex patterns. And the request about sending representatives through? It's been repeated several times, Maya confirmed. They seem eager for direct contact. The door slid open again, and Sanjay walked in with Zalvor and Etriil. The two Medusans' crystalline forms reflected the holographic light, creating rainbow patterns on the walls. The Council has agreed to a joint mission, Zalvor announced without preamble. His tone suggested he still wasn't entirely pleased with the decision. Elena raised an eyebrow. That's unexpected. Not really, Etriil said, his crystal form shifting to a lighter green color that indicated excitement. After 10,000 years of running, the Council finally realizes we might learn more by engaging. Or they just want to keep an eye on us, Sanjay muttered. Zalvor's form darkened slightly, the equivalent of a frown. Both can be true, Doctor. The fact remains that whatever lies beyond that bridge, we face it together or not at all. Elena nodded. So what's the plan? A joint expedition, Sanjay explained, bringing up schematics on another display. 2 vessels, 1 human, 1 Council, specially designed to withstand the bridge's gravitational stress. Each will carry 25 representatives. Who goes? Elena asked. Scientists, primarily, Maya said. People who can understand and communicate what they find. I've volunteered. Elena looked at her in surprise. Maya, it's incredibly dangerous. We have no idea what's on the other side. That's precisely why I need to go, Maya replied firmly. I've been studying the transmissions longer than anyone. If anyone has a chance of understanding what we find, it's me. I'm going too, Sanjay added. As the creator of the Prometheus device, I have a responsibility to see this through. 2 days later, Elena stood in the observation lounge of the Defiance, watching as the 2 expedition vessels made final preparations. The human ship, named Curiosity, gleamed silver against the blackness of space. Beside it, the Council vessel, an organic-looking craft named Seeker in the human translation, pulsed with gentle bioluminescence. Having second thoughts? Asked Colonel Jackson Way, joining her at the viewport. Elena shook her head. Not about the mission, but I wish I was going with them. Jackson nodded in understanding. Someone needs to stay behind, Commander. If something goes wrong. He didn't need to finish the sentence. If something went wrong, Earth would need its defenders ready. The vessels are ready for departure, announced Lieutenant Carver over the comms. Final checks complete. Elena touched her communicator. This is Commander Reyes to expedition teams. You carry the hopes and curiosity of 2 civilizations with you. Be careful, be brave, and come back to us. We will, Commander, came Maya's voice, and hopefully, with answers. The 2 ships moved slowly away from the fleet, heading toward the distant glow of the quantum bridge. It would take them 3 days to reach it, traveling carefully to avoid the gravitational distortions that still rippled through the solar system. As the ships grew smaller in the distance, Elena received a private transmission from the Arcadian elder who had once pleaded with humanity to flee. I was wrong about your species, Commander, she admitted, her voice carrying genuine respect. Where we saw only destruction in your defiance, you found possibility. The Council has existed for 50,000 years, yet in mere decades, humanity has forced us to question truths we held as absolute. Elena allowed herself a small smile. Sometimes the only way forward is through. The expedition ships reached the bridge 3 days later. The entire solar system watched via transmissions as they approached the swirling vortex. The Void Herald ships made no move to stop them, instead shifting position slightly as if to create a clear path. We're receiving final telemetry, reported Lieutenant Carver. They're at the entry point. On the main screen, the 2 ships hovered at the edge of the bridge, their hulls already reflecting strange distortions as space-time warped around them. Curiosity to Earth control, came Maya's voice, slightly distorted by interference from the bridge. We're ready to proceed. Recorders are active. If we don't return, you'll at least have our data. Acknowledged. Curiosity, Elena replied. Good. Luck. Together, the 2 ships moved forward and entered the swirling light of the quantum bridge. For a moment, their outlines stretched and distorted, elongating impossibly before snapping back. Then, in a flash that temporarily overloaded the sensors, they were gone. Silence fell across the Defiance's bridge. They had planned for this. The expedition would be out of contact while inside the bridge. If all went according to plan, they would return in 72 hours. If not, and now we wait, Elena said quietly. The 72 hours crawled by, feeling like the longest 3 days of Elena's life. Scientists continued to monitor the bridge, detecting fluctuations in its energy patterns, but nothing to indicate what might be happening on the other side. Then, exactly on schedule, the sensors detected movement. The bridge's swirling patterns intensified and 2 objects emerged, the expedition ships returning. But they were changed. Their hulls now shimmered with patches of the same light-absorbing material as the Herald ships, and they moved with impossible grace, as if mass and inertia were mere suggestions rather than laws. We're receiving a transmission, announced Lieutenant Carver, surprise evident in her voice. It's Dr. Chen. Maya's face appeared on the screen, but like the ships, she too was changed. Her eyes reflected the void between stars, and, when she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that the ship's speakers struggled to reproduce. Earth Control, this is Curiosity, she said, her expression one of wonder and excitement. We have made contact, and we have so much to tell you. 1 week after the expedition's return, Earth was still coming to terms with what they had discovered. Of the 50 crew members who had entered the quantum bridge, 43 had returned, their bodies subtly altered. Not grotesquely, but as if optimized. Their eyes reflected the stars, and their voices carried strange harmonics that ordinary speakers struggled to reproduce. Dr. Maya Chen sat at the center of a circular table in a secure conference room aboard the neutral station orbiting Venus. Around her were Earth's leaders, council representatives, and Commander Elena Reyes. All eyes were fixed on Maya as she prepared to give her final report. "What we found defies simple explanation," Maya began, her voice simultaneously coming from her mouth and seeming to emanate from the air itself. "The entities on the other side exist in 11 dimensions. They experience time non-linearly and consciousness collectively. They call themselves the architects." She made a simple gesture with her hand, and the air filled with holographic representations, mathematical equations and structures that rotated in impossible geometries. No projector had been activated. The images seemed to form directly from her thoughts. "The Void Heralds were never destroyers," Maya continued. "They were translators. They consumed worlds not out of malice but necessity, gathering the raw materials and energy needed to build bridges between our realities. Each civilization they encountered was offered the same choice: flee and remain unchanged or assist and evolve. The Council always chose to flee," Salvor observed quietly, his crystalline form dimmed with what might have been shame. Maya nodded. "For thousands of years, the architects sought partners who could help them access our universe, not to conquer it, but to save it. The revelation stunned everyone present. According to the architects, our universe was dying, not in the heat, death that scientists predicted billions of years in the future, but from a dimensional decay already underway at the quantum level. The process was slow by human standards, but accelerating. The architects exist in a stable dimensional configuration," Maya explained. "They've developed methods to halt the decay, but implementing them requires conscious observers from our reality, beings who understand and can manipulate the physical laws of this universe." Elena cut to the heart of the matter. "What exactly are they proposing?" "An alliance," Maya answered simply. "Humanity demonstrated something no other species has: the willingness to confront the unknown rather than flee from it. The Prometheus device, intended as a weapon, accidentally created exactly what was needed: a stable bridge between dimensions. The proposal unfolded. Earth would become the first of many bridge worlds, hosting permanent quantum gateways. In exchange, humanity would receive technology beyond their imagining and the opportunity to expand throughout the galaxy, not as refugees, but as partners in its preservation." The council representatives appeared deeply troubled. "How can we trust these architects?" asked the Arcadian elder. "How do we know this isn't a more sophisticated form of consumption?" Maya smiled, a strangely luminous expression. "You don't. That's the point. There are no guarantees, only choices. The difference is that humanity chose to face the unknown rather than run from it." Dr. Sanjay Kapoor, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. His eyes, like Maya's, now reflected the void between stars. "I've seen their world, or rather, their dimension. It's beautiful, in a way our minds can barely comprehend. But I've also seen the evidence of our universe's decay. The math is undeniable." In the days that followed, debates raged across Earth and Council worlds. Some feared a trap, others embraced the opportunity. Religious leaders saw divine intervention. Scientists saw natural evolution. Politicians saw power. Philosophers saw transcendence. Commander Elena Reyes stood with Colonel Jackson Way on the observation deck of the Defiance, watching distant Earth rotate slowly against the blackness of space. The blue planet seemed so fragile from here, so precious. "The president is calling for a global vote," Jackson said. "Whether to accept the architect's proposal or not." Elena nodded. "And the council?" "Still debating. Some factions want to maintain their policy of non-interference. Others are finally questioning 10,000 years of running. 3 months later, humanity made its choice. Not unanimously, Nothing involving humans ever was, but decisively. Earth would become the first bridge world, with carefully negotiated protections and exchanges. As the formal agreement was prepared, Elena stood with Sanjay on the observation deck, watching as the first permanent bridge took shape where the Jupiter event had occurred. Transformed herald ships worked alongside human vessels, assembling structures that bent light around them. "Do you think we made the right choice?" Sanjay asked quietly. Elena considered the question carefully. The Council spent 10,000 years running from a threat they never understood. They survived, but at what cost? They stopped growing, stopped dreaming, defined themselves only by what they feared. She gestured toward the bridge where, impossible, energies danced against the blackness of space. "Whatever comes next, good or bad, it will be because we chose to face it. That's what makes us human." 1 year after the Jupiter event, the first permanent bridge was completed. Unlike the chaotic vortex that had formed when Jupiter collapsed, this was a controlled gateway, a perfect circle of swirling light held within a massive ring-shaped station built by humans, heralds, and council engineers working together. The day of its activation, ships from across the galaxy gathered to witness the event. Even the most skeptical council races had sent representatives, curiosity finally overcoming fear. Elena stood on the bridge of the Defiance, now upgraded with technology shared by the architects. The ship no longer relied on traditional propulsion, but moved through space in ways that would have seemed impossible just a year ago. "Bridge activation in 1 minute," announced Lieutenant Carver. Maya Chen, who had become humanity's primary ambassador to the architects, appeared on the main view screen. She stood within the control center of the new bridge station. "Today marks a new chapter for our universe," she said, her voice carrying those strange harmonics that everyone had grown accustomed to. "For the first time, 2 realities will be connected not by accident or necessity but by choice." The massive ring began to glow, energy flowing through circuits that followed laws of physics humans were still struggling to understand. In the center, a pinpoint of light appeared, expanding slowly until it filled the entire ring, a controlled, stable gateway between dimensions. Through the gateway came the first official delegation from the architect's dimension, beings of light and geometry that human eyes could barely process. They didn't speak as humans understood speech, but everyone watching felt their message nonetheless: gratitude, partnership, potential. As the ceremony continued, Elena received a private message from the Arcadian elder. The alien's compound eyes reflected the light of the bridge even through the transmission. "In our oldest legends," the elder said, "there is a story of a young species who would one day remind the galaxy how to dream again. We thought it was just a myth. Now I wonder if it was a prophecy." Elena didn't reply immediately. She looked out at the stars, at the bridge glowing in the distance, at the gathered ships from races that had spent millennia in fearful retreat, but were now, cautiously, moving forward again. "It wasn't a prophecy," she finally said. "Just a choice. The same choice every civilization faces sooner or later, to retreat from the unknown or to advance toward it." As if in response, the bridge flared with new energy, and for a brief moment, Elena swore she could see through it, to a reality of stunning complexity and beauty waiting on the other side. A future not without dangers, but filled with possibilities that no one, human or alien, could have imagined. The Galactic Council had pleaded, but humanity had already made its choice, and the universe would never be the same. The end.